On the biggest stage in the world, FanDuel is changing the game because sometimes your player gets subbed off and your bet goes with them. Not anymore. With FanDuel Super Sub, if your player's subbed out, your bet stays in. That's right. If your player leaves a match, your bet continues on with the substitute. So you're still in it until the final whistle. Visit FanDuel.com. Get started now. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel.
21 plus select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. 18 plus DCKYWY. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-MY-RESET. 888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org/chat. Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Maryland. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org. Call 800-327-5050. Massachusetts. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Text HOPE-NY in New York. Call 877-770-7867. Louisiana.
Visit FanDuel.com. Get started now. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi. Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
We're back on the left versus the right, and we are with Jake Novak. I'm David Paterson, and we're like Wide World of Sports, Jake. We are spanning the globe.
That's right.
With issues to discuss. But one that we might touch on just one last time is what's going on in Iran. It is such a show that at this point right now that I, as you know, see myself as a common sense Democrat. I was sitting right here with you when we invaded Iran, and at the time I thought it was the right thing to do. Then it just seemed to stagnate for, 2 months maybe, something like that. Then we got more talks, and then President Trump is giving these interviews saying that they're dying. They're dying for us to come in. They're dying for a deal. And then he found out they're not dying for a deal, and now he's dying for what Franklin Delano Roosevelt would call a new deal because the old one's not working. Pick up on that, Jake.
I think that President Trump it's either one of two things. Either he's learning on the job how intractable the Iranians are and how that just isn't going to work with these people. Or he's known that all along, and he's just been going through these motions while he's enjoyed, and I think our economy has enjoyed the relief that we've had for several weeks now. It's been several weeks now where every day the price of gasoline has been going down in the country, the average per gallon price. We're about $1.12 higher per gallon than we were before the war. That's not bad. I understand if you have a 20-gallon tank, that's $20 more that you're spending, but compared to last month, you're down $8 from what you were spending. So I think he's been enjoying that, the stock market rally, things like that, and then he'll have to make more of a final decision. But one of the things that I think that's hurting this, and this will be my kind of last thing I'll say about this, is there are a lot of different groups involved. And one of the logical first things people will say is, why don't we cut Iran up? Give some to the Kurds, give some to this group and that group, and maybe see what happens. And that's really hard to do because as anyone, maybe if you learn properly your history and maybe had some good teachers in universities before they ruin themselves, lots of borders tend to lead to less security. The more borders you have, the more balkanization you have. Everyone lives in a world of a little bit less security if they feel like they've got 6 different countries surrounding them that may be hostile. And this is not an easy problem to solve. Anyone who thinks it's easy is being really, really too simplistic. And as we said earlier, this Iranian regime is not seriously interested in acting in a civilized manner just because we are. And by the way, this is like when you're angry at like a war going on and you just take it out on your older brother because he's there. There's a little bit of that going on. Obviously, people are attacking Trump all the time for whatever he does, but there's a little bit of that too. It's like, you know what? I can't yell at the Iranians because first of all, they're not here. And second of all, they're not interested in what I have to say and they want to kill me. So let me just yell at Trump. Whereas really, we should really be standing behind him and saying, President Trump, we realize you're dealing with a country that isn't reasonable, and we will support your efforts to try to quiet these things down. But instead, we just get into these intramural battles, and it's just so pathetic,
Well, I think that something you said earlier kind of struck me. It's not that he's saying things that he knows are not true. It's that he's saying things that he wants to be true.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. You're not a liar when you say something because you believe it. And I think that's why he may have come to the conclusion the past couple of days that, this is starting to work out, and there are a couple other things wrong. And even one of the press conferences, he said one of the entities didn't want to go along with something or other. He says, that's all right. We can live without that. Like he had really, I think, calmed down and thought that this was okay. But he made the mistake that President Obama made, that President Biden made, going back years ago, in thinking that you're actually having a dialogue with someone that seeks the same result as you do.
Right.
And I don't see that as something to criticize. It's just something he might want to rethink as these talks go forward.
Yeah. Since 2016, I've been one of the many people who have said it's important not to take President Trump literally, but seriously. There are people, his opponents, especially in the news media, these supposed pundits who supposedly think they know what they're talking about, take Trump literally, but not seriously. And everything he says. So, for example, he said this past week, that he loves high inflation and he thinks it's going to come down really quickly. Of course, the headline was President Trump loves high inflation. So they're going to report that as a literal thing and not take seriously the fact that he was saying, look, high inflation now is going to be great because it's going to come down so precipitously that it's going to look really great in a few weeks.
And that might not happen, but he believes that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I give him a little bit of a break from time to time.
But just taking him literally or out of context, or the new thing is every time Trump closes his eyes at a public event, they say he's sleeping, which is just not true. By the way, I've stopped doing this, but for years when I would do radio, I would close my eyes when I talked. I don't know why that is, and someone told, and it would sometimes bleed over to my TV appearances. So don't do that, by the way. But I'm not sleeping, believe me. So those are those kinds of things. But we've got to get into another intractable problem, which is these midterms and the whole Graham Platner situation, which we talked about last week. But there's one update, Governor, in that. After we did our show, a poll came out showing that Platner and Susan Collins are in a dead heat at 46% to 46%. So to me, this wipes out the whole argument for him. If you're saying, well, the Democrats, they can't make this decision because it's so tantalizing, they might win this race and it's a flip from Republican to Dem. And well, what if you lose it? What if you don't even win it? What if you sold your soul for nothing?
Exactly. Well, I would have thought that some of the discussion after Tuesday's election, and it being that he was aware of these problems that he had and other things that he did is one thing. But this is a party that is trying to get back in the game, that's losing in too many places. And sometimes you have to try a different strategy, and it can't be dance with the one that brung you. In other words, you can't let him dictate what's going to happen. See, this is going to spill over to other races. They're going to raise his name in places far, far away from Maine. And what you want to do is to demonstrate when there's a crisis that you'd address it. Put him out. Now he's out. And the person will be the sorriest to see him go will be Susan Collins.
Yeah,
And so I'm just saying that now you have shown integrity, which is not always credited to the Democratic Party, and at times even with the Republican Party. But now you've stood up and really straightened something out. And years ago, Jake, this used to happen all the time. People got kicked off tickets because they were speeding. Like they on the lieutenant governor's running, caught speeding, taken off the ticket. They got somebody else. Yeah. Nothing changed.
Yeah, people need to understand this is different from the 2024 race. Now, I knew for sure that Trump was going to win the presidential election when they dumped Joe Biden. Not because they replaced him with Kamala Harris. I think they could have replaced him with anyone. You can't dump your presidential candidate
in August.
In August or whenever it was. It's just ridiculous. And Joe Biden was a known commodity for better or for worse.
Right. And as I was saying before, that's the one time that they did have to hold on to the candidate because they didn't have time to find another one.
Yeah, they had plenty of opportunities before 2024 to get rid of him and to get him to retire gracefully, and they didn't do that. So that's one thing. This is a guy in Graham Platner. It's still, most of the country still doesn't know who he is. He's not a known quantity. He's a net negative. I believe that not only would they not suffer in the polls if they dumped him and replaced him with someone else, but they would gain not only in Maine but in other parts of the country. As you mentioned, his name is already being brought up in a lot of other elections. I urge everyone listening, if you're getting into it with your liberal friends, I urge all my fellow conservatives, start saying Platner like the way the liberals talk about January 6th and call President Trump a rapist and all the other things. You need to be the person who says Platner's name over and over again. And that is going to happen. And it would be a big positive. Again, he's not running for president. This is a small state population-wise, big geographically, by the way. Used to live there. But it's a small state population-wise. It would be a net positive if they dump him. The fact that they can't see this, just like they couldn't see that dumping Biden as late as they did was just a disastrous decision at how late it took for them to do it, just goes to show that the Democratic National Committee, and I don't know if the RNC would be any smarter. I'm not saying that. I'm not a company man. I'm a conservative philosophically. I don't join with, you don't have to stamp me with any particular label. So I don't know if the RNC would be any smarter, but I can tell you right now, the DNC doesn't understand this, and they're just really not smart. They shouldn't have dumped Biden that late. If they wanted to dump him, which I think made sense in many ways, it should have been after the 2022 midterms or somewhere closer to that time. Not in 2024 for crying out loud.
Right.
And I still think it's not too late for them to dump this Platner guy because, again, if he were running for president, yes, it would be too late. We're already in June.
I think the same thing. In fact, if I can see it better than them, they're really in bad shape.
Even David Paterson can see.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, honestly, this is just and the stupidity involved here. Now, a lot of times when the Democrats make stupid decisions lately, and you've heard me say this, Governor, I suspect it has something to do with funding from foreign enemies who are influencing bad decisions because that's how they're getting paid. They're getting paid to make a dumb decision. In this case, I don't think that that's the case. I think this is just a simple example of the Democratic National Committee not being smart enough to realize that this, I mean, it would just do them. And one of the things that Republicans should do to continue to put pressure on them is to make statements along the lines of, and Susan Collins can be one of the people who says this, but the Republicans nationally can say the same thing. They can say, hey, you know what? If I'm going to say this to my Democrat friends right now, and I'll say it too as a conservative. If the DNC dumps Graham Platner now, I will not dance on their grave and talk about how pathetic they are and how stupid they were for taking so long. I will just thank them and we will move on. How about that? It put even more pressure on them.
Jake, that is a powerful statement. And since we know that people out of state listen to WABC, I think some Republican would really ride the crest of the wave if they were to get up, say, Monday and say exactly what you just said. Some prominent person, they said that, for the good of all this, we'll make it easy for you. Get him off the ticket, and we will not, other than policy issues, argue with you about anything.
Yeah, we'll just say thank you for removing this bad guy. And may the best new candidate win, whatever it is, or that kind of thing. That would really be a smart. First of all, that's the way I really feel. I mean, that's how bad I feel about this guy Platner. He really scares me. Don't want him in the Senate. Don't want to have him. I think he'll be like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib wrapped into one because it's much more dangerous.
I gotta say, for somebody who's been in so much trouble, the way he went after Collins in his acceptance speech, you would think that Susan Collins had murdered 3 people and was found not guilty. I mean, it would seem to me, if I had to be him, I would have gotten up and talked about the problem first. So I know very well that I've done some things that were really untoward, this, that, and the other thing. People respond to individuals who take responsibility. After I heard him speak, I thought she was beating up people and roughing up men or something like that.
I mean, she voted for Obamacare, essentially. She voted to convict President Trump in one of the impeachment trials. And this is the person that you're willing to sacrifice all of your supposed morals for to beat her. It's just so ludicrous. This isn't This isn't Ted Cruz.
No.
This isn't Josh Hawley. Some of these very conservative senators who are, I understand why they would anger classical liberals and classic leftists. This is Susan Collins. She should be one of those Republicans that you're really happy to have because she throws everything into the realm of possible, even when you don't have the majority in the Senate.
And sometimes her departure from the majority was something the Democrats really liked.
Yeah.
So maybe this isn't the race to be trying to set where the rest of the midterm elections are going to come out. Maybe this is the race to get this guy out. She probably beats whoever replaces him. But at least you've got someone who's not always an adversary and probably is very inured with just the fact that you would do the right thing and remove the other candidate. There's too much baggage.
Yeah, I mean, she also voted against Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, really, this is to me, and I know Susan Collins. As I said, I used to live in Maine. My first job producing in TV, 1995 in Bangor, Maine. And Susan Collins was in Congress at the time. She was not a senator yet, and she had a little lower level. And to me, this is it's just incredible. There's better people who could probably represent Maine for either party, but to me, this is a real black stain on the Democrat Party that they're not dumping this guy.
So here we are, the left versus the right, from Obi Chinanobi to Susan Collins. We've covered it all here on WABC 77. We're coming up on 4 o'clock. Jake, thanks for joining me again this week.
My pleasure, as always.
And we'll find something interesting to talk about between now and next week. In the meantime, everybody have a great weekend.